What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Gamecite Chronicles, the console game podcast where we sit down each and every week to talk about video games. I'm your host, Bonfire, and this is episode number 44. Hope you guys are all doing well out there. Had a fantastic week and weekend, and I want to thank you guys all for the support of the show here lately. We're currently on track for 400 downloads for the podcast, which I know is a super small number, again, when you consider like all the millions of other podcasts out there, but I'm stoked on it, and I'm really hoping we can hit that number before year end. So I really need your guys' support and help with that. Share it with your friends, tweet it out, just get the word out if you know someone that would love to tune into the show, and I would greatly appreciate that because it's pretty exciting. And here in the last week, I feel like the numbers have kind of jumped up on various episodes, so I'm pretty stoked, I have to say. And after this episode, I'm going to pre-record the last two episodes for the year going into next year, with these three episodes kind of being my end of the year wrap up, covering some end of the year topics that I'm pretty excited to jump into. Now, speaking of end of the year, I just did my PlayStation wrap up on the PlayStation app or logging into their website. And it's pretty cool, actually. Some of the stats I didn't realize, and I've seen some other people post theirs, which are insane compared to mine. But I was still surprised at some of my numbers here. So annual highlights for me are 492 hours played on my PlayStation consoles, which is really just my PS5, which is kind of insane to think about. I played 17 different games. I earned 329 trophies, 3 platinums, which I was pretty stoked on. I'm not a big trophy guy. I used to do achievements back in the day, like the 360 era, but as I've gotten older and less time for gaming, like I don't have time to be hunting every single trophy and achievements and all that stuff. I still like to get them and collect them, and if a platinum's not super difficult and I'm really into the game, I'll go for it. And then I got 35 PS Plus games this year, which is pretty cool. And let's see, if I go back here, it talks about my top 5 played games, which I don't know how accurate some of these numbers are, but um, nonetheless, it is what it is. So let's see. Did it show that? I thought it showed that. Let's go back. I could have swore when I did this, it showed. Oh, here we go. Top games. Duh. Just got to look on the wrong thing. Okay, so here it is. So top 5 games, my most played games of 2022. Number 1, actually I'll go backwards. Number 5 is Ghostwire Tokyo, which I apparently logged 45 hours in there, which sounds about right. Dying Light 2 comes in at number 4, which I played for 51 hours. Number 3, Kingdoms of Amalur: Re-Reckoning, which I played for 59 hours. That sounds about right. God of War Ragnarok at number 2 for 60 hours, which, okay. And then Horizon Forbidden West is number 1 at a whopping 96 hours. I don't remember putting 96 hours into that game, but I know I played it a lot. I thought it was more around like maybe 60-ish, but I don't know. That's what it says. So that's a lot of time. But I did get the platinum. I did do most everything in that game because I really enjoyed it. So there it is. I thought that was pretty interesting. What's missing on here is Elden Ring, and I think it's probably number 6. But either way, this is pretty cool. And I know Nintendo does this too. I haven't done my Nintendo one, so I'll probably do that. Maybe share it on the next episode, just for fun. But if you're interested, just look up PlayStation Wrap Up 2022. You can log into your PlayStation account and do it. And they put together this nice little infographic based on your stats. I love this kind of nerdy analytics stuff, and I thought it was really, really cool. So I'm curious to see my Nintendo one. I haven't played my Switch much at all this year, outside of maybe a couple of games. So it'll be interesting to kind of see that. And then thinking Xbox needs to do this. I don't know why Xbox doesn't have a big company like Microsoft. I mean, you've got the data, you got a good handle on the data. So like, why can't you put something together like this? I don't know, but I thought that was really cool. Figured I'd share it out there. If you want to share yours, let me know. Hit me up either on Twitter at Gamecite Podcast, or leave me a comment, down if you're watching the video, down in the comments, YouTube, Rumble, all that good stuff. Love to hear from you. But I thought that was really, really cool because I know like other apps do this, like Spotify and stuff like that. And so it's always fun to kind of see how much time you invest into your hobby. Now, for those that are new, and I know there's a few of you out there, remember the best way you can support the show is to leave us a nice rating on the podcast platform you're listening on. Helps us get into the algorithms, helps people find the show a little bit easier. So that's much appreciated. Also, be sure to subscribe. We're over on YouTube and or Rumble, where video episodes of the show are going up now. Kind of gotten in the groove for that. And I'm testing out a higher resolution than what, like I'm doing full HD. I know that kind of sounds lame, but with Zencaster I'm using, I'm trying it out. So we'll see how it goes. And we'll go from there. And you can follow me on Twitter, as I mentioned, at Gamecite Podcast, and catch new episodes of the show each and every week on Mondays, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And with that, actually, since I'm going to pre-record some of the last few episodes of the years, that way I can take some time off, be around the holidays and all that, then not have to worry about the podcast. The next 2 episodes after this will actually go up early, and it's something I'm kind of trying out over on Locals. So locals.com, you can head over to there, search for Gamecite Chronicles. You'll find the podcast, find my kind of community page, so you can join on there. It's free. It's not like Patreon where I'm asking, for subscriptions and stuff like that. It's just free, but 2 days early. So Saturday instead of Monday, you can listen to the audio version of the podcast. It'll go up there. If you want to head out there and check it out. So for the next 2 episodes, we're going to be doing that, trying that out, see if you like it. So let me know. Take a sip of some Chick-fil-A for lunch. So they give cherry Coke at Chick-fil-A, and I love cherry Coke. I feel like so many places don't have cherry Coke. They have Coke products or Pepsi products or whatever, but like cherry Pepsi or cherry Coke is just, I don't know. I feel like it's just unappreciated, and it's fantastic. So shout out to Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is good in general on so many levels, but I won't dive into that. I digress on that. So, as I mentioned, for this week's show, we're going to be going over in kind of the starting of my end of the year series over the next 3 episodes. And we're going to be going over my top 10 best games I should have played this year. And this is something I did as kind of my end of the year series when I was doing YouTube. And I think those videos are still on YouTube if you are so inclined to check out really old videos of me. But I like this one because it allows me really to dive into some of the games that I really, really want to play, or that really, really interest me or intrigue me, that I haven't got around to yet. Because as you know, there's so many games that come out throughout the year that it's like, I don't have time to play everything. And there's bound to be a handful of games that I missed. So I put together a list of top 10 that we'll be going over for this week's episode. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention at the top here, because we do on this podcast occasionally react to the news. I like to dive into the news, but focus on just various gaming topics. But the Activision Blizzard deal, I wanted to touch on this at the top here because there's been, over the last couple of weeks, there's been lots of news that have come out regarding the deal. I think right now it's currently being blocked by the FTC. They're like suing Microsoft or something over the deal. It's still held up in the EU, and Microsoft and Xbox have come out and said they struck a deal with Nintendo to bring Call of Duty onto Nintendo platforms once the deal goes through for the next 10 years. I think they tried to do the same with Valve, but Valve's like, nah, but we still back you on the deal. And they basically have tried to get everyone on board on their side except PlayStation, to say, hey, PlayStation, everyone's taken the deal, the 10-year deal. It's on the table for you. Take it. And PlayStation continued to declines. And I know here recently, I think in the last couple of days, they've offered to allow PlayStation to put it on the PS Plus subscription service, which they've already said they're not going to do day and date games, but I know you're just doing it just to say, hey, we offered this, and they said they wouldn't do it. And so PlayStation is held pretty firm on this. And I'm just so tired of this. Like, I'm kind of at the point where it's like, just either do the deal or don't. Like, it's getting old. It's been interesting seeing how these two companies, I mean, it's real life console wars between, Xbox and PlayStation. And, to Xbox and Microsoft's credit, I think they've done a pretty good job at making PlayStation look like the bad guy. From an optics perspective, PlayStation's looked kind of very pitiful and all that. And so there's just, I feel like this, you could really dive into this topic and I'm just exhausted on it. But I will say two things, and I'll try not to get too much on my soapbox about this. First is, I think Microsoft, Xbox, and especially Phil Spencer, they talk out of both sides of the mouth. Phil Spencer is notorious for this. And a lot of the stuff they say is just for bullshit. I mean, I think it's clear that Microsoft is in panic mode with some of the things that they're saying, to where they're going to do and say anything they can to get the deal through, whether they mean it or not. And I think that's pretty apparent. The second thing I feel like I'm kind of the only one in this corner here, but I feel like Microsoft is the bad guy in this situation. I, as I mentioned, they've done a good job at painting PlayStation as the bad guy, and I think a lot of people view it that way. But that aside, I can't blame PlayStation for the way they're handling the situation. I think anyone do when one of your major competitors is buying up, one of the biggest games on your platform. It makes sense to try to make that as hard and as difficult as possible. But the Xbox is like, they just want to buy their way to success. And they've been doing this, really ever since the Xbox has come out. Whereas, you look at PlayStation and Nintendo, and they've built their way up from within, kind of starting small, and over time built their first party studios, built exclusives, and delivered high quality games that are exclusive to their platform. And they've driven success that way. And Xbox just doesn't seem to be able to do that. They want to buy their way to success. And I always think of it as like Xbox is like the rich kid in school that never does any, like, he can't do anything. He's not creative. He's not good at school, but he buys his way through it. Like he pays for the answers on tests. He pays people to do his homework. He always buys the best and newest things just because he can. And I feel like that's kind of Xbox here, where they're just trying to buy anything and everything, like all these studios and IPs, because they literally can't create their or manage their own. So they're just going to try to buy their way to be successful. And I don't think that's good. Therefore, I think they are the bad guy in this situation. So let me know what you think about that. I'm just going to leave it at that. We'll say no more. I'm sure we'll revisit this topic as it goes along, but I just wanted to mention that at the top because it is such a big topic that everyone's talking about, and there's so many hot takes out there online. As I look through Twitter, and sometimes I go down, various rabbit holes through different sections, and I've almost thought of doing a segment on the show where I just react to various tweets. Some tweets are good and interesting, and some are just super hot takes where I'm like, what the fuck are you saying? Like, seriously, I don't know. And I just kind of want to react to them. So I don't know, toying with that. Maybe that's an idea for the new year. But either way, I digress on Microsoft, but just wanted to put that out there before I get too soapboxy. So before we get into the best games I should have played this year, we got to talk about the games that I have been playing. And of course, I always want to hear from you guys. So let me know what games you've been playing down in the comments below so we can talk about them here on the show. But as for me, I've been playing a couple games. So I mentioned last week that I started Tunic on the Xbox via Game Pass. And I beat the game. I managed to beat the game all the way through. I meant to look up my playtime. I want to say it was probably around 10-ish hours. I totally forgot to look at that before the show, but I did manage to beat it, and I do think this game is pretty cool. I enjoyed my time with it for the most part, but there are some aspects of this game that make it way more difficult than I think it really needs to be. And so what do I mean by that? So I mentioned this last week, but one of the coolest mechanics about this game is this video game manual. And so throughout the game, there are pieces of the video game manual you will go around and collect. And if you towards the end of the game, you're trying to collect every piece to put together this entire game manual. And I think it's like 54 pages long. And that doesn't mean there's 54 collectibles out there, but because I think each time you get roughly 2 pages, so half that. And within that manual, I've come to find is really everything you need to know about the game. But what makes this game so hard is that the majority of the game's dialogue, or not really dialogue, but text, is in this almost like hieroglyphic language that you can't understand. And that's the same way with the manual. There are some of it that's transcribed into English, and then there are various like notes and little drawings in there, which is kind of cool because it reminds you of like the NES and SNES days where like let's say you go to like Blockbuster and you rent a game and it has the game manual and there's some people write down like codes in the back or they'll draw on the manual and stuff like that. Has a little bit of that, but all of it's intentional within in this manual in the game. And there's just so many things that the game doesn't tell you that you have to figure out. And I used a walkthrough for most of this game just because I don't have the time to sit here and try to figure out everything. As satisfying as that would be, I don't have the patience nor the time for that. So I used a manual. I just wanted to play through the game and enjoy it, and I did. So take that with the with it what you will. But some of these some of the things in this game it doesn't tell you are just mind blowing. So like for example, there are wells throughout the game, and you can toss coins that you find into them, and after you toss so many of them, you start to unlock different additional slots for like these power up cards or ability cards that you get. And I didn't do that because I didn't know to until like the very end of the game. So like that's just an example of like I just didn't know, and maybe I should have experimented and stuff like that, and I can appreciate it, but again, I just don't have the time or patience for it. And then there's also like fairies you can collect throughout the game, which I had, again, no idea about that these things even existed until the end of the game. And so there's just little things like that that you wouldn't know unless you really dive into like the game's manual and just are patient about it, or you look it up like I did through a walkthrough. And so the game has 2 endings, and one's like the bad ending, which is probably the most common ending, because the good ending, or the true ending, if you will, you have to collect all the pieces. You have to collect half of the game's like fairies, which I think there's 20 of them, so you only have to do 10. And then all of the pages to the video game manual to get the true ending. But the last piece of the manual is behind this ridiculous puzzle that when I was looking it up, because I just wanted to do it, the way you come to this answer is insane. So as you're finding these fairies, and there's various doors and places throughout the game where on the D-pad, you do like this directional sequence of codes. So like up, down, down, left, left, right, left, up, whatever. And a lot of that stuff is kind of within the environment and which directions to go. But the last one is a series of directions that you have to find throughout the entirety of the manual. And it's like encrypted and buried in there. And it's just so extravagant that I was like, I don't know how anyone figured this out. It's crazy. And then you're putting it in, and I'm like, I'm afraid I'm going to mess it up because it's such a long sequence of, inputs on the D-pad. It's crazy. And I will say again, I appreciate it. And it's pretty cool because it kind of reminds you of like old school codes that you would put into like OG Nintendo games. But my goodness, is it insane. But when you do get the true ending, it's kind of cool. It's nice. It's better than the bad ending. So I did do both of them. Did that. Like I said, I think I enjoyed the game overall. And the one thing I didn't like about it, and it's more of an expectation or miss expectation, is that I really, going into this game, I think a lot of people, myself included, thought it was very Zelda-like because of the way the main character looks. I mean, it's like there's a Zelda fox. He's got the green tunic, sword, shield, all that. And there are a lot of Zelda-inspired elements to this game. The one that's missing, though, which I think is one of the key Zelda elements, is puzzles within dungeons. That's not really a part of this game. And I was expecting that going in, but it's just not there. And it definitely has some of those Souls-light elements in terms of like, there's a big focus on bosses because there's bosses throughout the game, and some of them are pretty difficult, I would say, towards the end. And the final boss was definitely a challenge for me. And the respawn system, like once you die, you respawn at like a bonfire type thing, upgraded the bonfire, all that stuff. So there's definitely some inspiration there, I would imagine. And I know it's very cliche to say, like Souls inspired or Souls like and all that, but I definitely kind of saw it in a good way, some good things. So it's I do think I do think it's a good game. I'm glad that they got a nomination for the Game Awards. I think it was like Best Debut Indie was that they were nominated for. So this is the studio's first game, and I'm excited to see what they do next. And I have to say again, I want to give a shout out to them because I think the video game manual aspect of this game, that whole thing, I think is really unique, and I've never seen anything like that done in a video game. And it's so beautiful. Like the artwork actually in the manual is just genuinely beautiful. So I do think it's a game you should try out if you enjoy kind of Zelda-like games, or a game that really doesn't hold your hand at all. That would be this game. So try it out, and let me know what you think. But because I enjoyed my time with it, I would say. After that, though, I jumped into the Forspoken demo, and this launched, I think, at the night of the Game Awards, and I was stoked because I was like, okay, as I've mentioned in the podcast before, this game's kind of been selling me on what I'm seeing in the gameplay, so now I actually get to try it. Again, Square Enix is killing it with their demos of their upcoming games, and I jumped into it. I played through the demo in about 90 minutes or so I've spent about 90 minutes with this game. And when I first loaded it up, it was on fidelity mode, so you can transfer between like fidelity, ray tracing, and performance mode. And fidelity, I mean, it looks good, but once you start moving, it's in like 30 frames and it's so sluggish. And I was like, oh my God, I can't. Thank God there's a performance mode. And I think it runs pretty well. So I did that because one of the things that's, if you've watched any gameplay, it's all about traversal and fast combat and all that stuff. So like 30 frames just ain't cutting it, bro. So I'm glad performance mode was there and it works pretty well. So I was excited about that. And man, I have some thoughts on this game for sure. So the first thing I'll say is like the character movement. When you're not, so you have this ability to like parkour. So you hold a button, you kind of do parkour movement, and that's kind of what you've seen in the trailers, like the fast, fluid movement throughout the environments. Where she's like riding on the ice or swinging like Spider-Man and stuff like that. But when you're not doing that, it feels very stiff. Like when your character's like kind of walking around areas, it's very stiff, slow. I'm sure that's intentional, but it kind of reminds me almost of like Sunset Overdrive. If you've ever played that game, which is definitely one of the best Xbox One games to date on the platform, done by Insomniac Games, the PlayStation studio now. Interesting. But in Sunset Overdrive, the whole point of that game is to be constantly like grinding on rails and flying throughout the levels and very fluid and fast paced. But when you're not doing that, you're just kind of running and walking super slow. It's very hard to do combat and survive that way. And so this kind of feels similar to where you want to be moving, you kind of want to be parkouring and just dodging and kind of flying around the areas as opposed to just kind of walking around and taking things slow. So I kind of got that sense of it. And I will say the combat and the parkouring, like I really don't feel like I got a good hold of it, especially the parkouring. But I think part of that is I think you unlock some of the additional like parkour abilities as you progress throughout the game. So I don't think I had everything, the whole repertoire there. And there's some things the game just doesn't tell you. So it wasn't really towards the end of the demo. I kind of felt like I was getting a handle on like movement, like dodging around enemies, maybe locking onto one, getting a handle of the combat system, and finally just kind of understanding this game. And I still don't feel like I even scratched the surface to it. So the demo doesn't really do that great of a job to kind of walk you through it. I have to imagine that if you're playing the actual game, it'll walk you kind of through that. So there's that. And also in the demo, there's like not really much story. So the way the demo's set up is you basically can do 5 kind of side missions throughout the area that they let you explore, and then one kind of like bonus mission at the very end. But none of it has any story to it. It's all kind of just side activities, really filler content. So like one of them, for example, was I went to this like stone and activated it, and then it took me to this like arena to where I had to like protect random citizens from like enemies for a certain number of time. So total filler, like trial type content that, I mean, it was kind of fun to do, but I really hope that's not the bulk of the side activities in this game, like stuff like that. But one of like the very end, like once you get to the fight the bigger creatures, which are like they're called mutants in the game. That's the fun stuff, and I really enjoyed that aspect. I fought like two mutants that were pretty cool, and I gotta say the enemy design for the mutants were pretty awesome. But on the other hand, there's a lack of diversity in enemies, at least in the area in the demo I was playing, because really I probably encountered maybe 3 different enemy types, and it's a fairly big area you can explore. So that was kind of a bummer. Again, I hope that's not representative of the final product. And there are, plenty of collectibles, lots of treasure chests to find, some little houses, save points, checkpoints you can go into, and that's all good and well, kind of typical open world type stuff. And then the other thing is the combat. So the combat. Sorry, someone's at my doorbell, but I'm not going to go answer because I don't know who the hell you are. Anyways, so I the combat, there's like 2 combat styles, and I once I kind of figured it out, I like it. So one of them's kind of more close melee ranged, and the other's kind of more ranged combat. And there's various spells that you can use on both triggers that do various different things. And some of them have, can be a weakness towards an enemy, or enemies can be resistance to the different types of spells that you're using. And so it's kind of fun to kind of mix those up and use a variety of different combat styles. And really, once you kind of get it flowing, it feels really good. And then the other thing that I thought was pretty cool in relation to the combat system is kind of the upgrades and accessories that you can use. So I think, is it Frey, the main character? I think her name is. So she's got like her robes, and you can see a variety of different robes in her that you have in your repertoire already. And so those look pretty cool. There were various different styles, different colors like that. The necklaces, they all have different attributes and character traits and stuff like that. And then the really interesting one is her fingernails. So you can do various different fingernail like painting on her and designs on her nails. And those all come with their own different kind of attributes and, power ups and stuff like that. And so it was just really kind of cool, really unique. And then, so I really don't feel like I scratched the surface at all in terms of the combat systems and the unlockables and stuff like that. There's so much. The menus, I'm still not the biggest fan of. Some of the fonts are a little weird and all that. So, it is what it is. It's not as bad as I thought it would be, but it's still not that great from a UI perspective, at least in my opinion. But some of the systems seem pretty cool and seem like there's some depth there to where I'm interested to learn more and spend more time with it. I will say though, it's not as smooth. Like the combat isn't as smooth as I thought it would be. But again, I just feel like I need to spend more time with the systems, and kind of have some context in terms of getting to know it, because you can do a little tutorial in there, but I just don't feel like I'm fully grasping everything to the way I need to be, or the way it's meant to be played. One thing that bugs me though about this game is the lock-on system. It does have a lock-on system, but it doesn't feel like it's very good. And because some of the stuff when you do ranged abilities, you have to like kind of aim even still while you're locked on. Because you can, and I don't need like auto aim per se, but it just doesn't feel like a very good lock-on system. And as fluid as the combat's supposed to be, and like where you're dodging, different attacks and moving around, I really feel like that needs to be done a little better to where you can have that kind of fluid combat experience to be able to look through, lock onto this enemy, jump around them, hit them with some attacks, kind of dodge their attacks, so on and so forth. So I don't know. Maybe they can fix that with an easy patch or something like that, or kind of tweak it, or maybe it's tweaked in the final game. I don't know. But I am interested in this world. It intrigues me. It's I don't know. Fantasy always kind of intrigues me, but it's kind of very magical fantasy. I want to know more about the story and about this world and stuff like that. So I don't know. There's just something intriguing about it that makes me want to learn more about it. I do think it's beautiful. I've seen some people criticize that the game was almost like too photorealistic or whatever, and I don't know. I think the game looks great. I think it ran pretty well. Um, so I didn't really have any issues with that. But I'm not a super like fidelity nerd to where like, oh, my game's got to be 120 frames per second, 4K maxed out PC. I don't need that shit. I just want it to look good, run well, that type of thing. I'm pretty simple on that, but frame rate's pretty big on me. And so I I'm still interested in this game. The one thing I did notice, because again, I think a lot of people share this concern, is around the conversation, right? Between, was it Frey and then her, sentient cufflinks and all that, and then just a terrible dialogue. And there are certainly some not so great dialogue moments when you kind of hear the banter between the two, or like she's talking during, combat or exploring. But it kind of came across as like a lot of games do this now. It's like one of the design elements, to where your main character is just either talking to themselves or, to a companion. And I don't know, I kind of didn't even really notice it. It wasn't that bad, but I'm curious to see, like, from a narrative perspective, how it goes and if it's really that bad as what they've shown off. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm still intrigued by this game, and I'll be candid. I don't know if it's a day one purchase for me at this moment, because the Dead Space remake comes out around the same time. So we'll see where I'm at in terms of games I'm playing and stuff like that before I jump into it. But I definitely do want to pick it up and jump into it, even after the demo. And after that, I plan on jumping to the Callisto Protocol. I finally got my copy. Amazon sent it a week late, but I finally got it. I loaded it up. It's ready to go on my PlayStation 5. So I'll be jumping into that. And probably on the next episode, I'll share some thoughts on that, because I'll be jumping to that very, very soon. Oh, the other thing I'll mention, and I know I've been talking about games for way too long, but I jumped into Fortnite. I actually just jumped in this morning for not the first time, but the first time since it came out, I think, on the Switch a couple years ago. And the reason I did is because I heard that they released an update for the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 version with like up-res. It looks gorgeous. And the screenshots I was looking at, I was like, this game looks gorgeous. I mean, it's Fortnite, but it still looks beautiful. And I was like, I kind of just want to check it out. And I have no idea what the hell I'm doing in that game. Genuinely no idea what I'm doing. I didn't jump into battle royale modes, though I do want to try the no build battle royale, because the building aspect I could not stand, especially when you've got like PC players who can hotkey stuff and basically build a castle in the matter of seconds, which is just bananas. But I did try like a big team deathmatch type game mode, which was kind of fun, though I'm terrible at it. And then some like custom game, and there's tons of like random custom games that I didn't even know. And so Fortnite's not really for me. I may jump back into it again just to try it again, but I don't. On one hand, I can understand the appeal. On the other hand, I don't, because it's like the same thing over and over. But a lot of custom games, I mean, there's, hundreds of different possibilities and games you can create. Like, there's a lot you can do in that game, and you got to give them credit for Epic and what they've done with that game. One thing I will say though is, once I got in, it's just a giant storefront, and like it's not super in your face, but it's like they're trying to sell you shit at each and every corner. And the thing is though, is people buy it. People buy into this. They're paying $20 a skin. And, if you do that and you're happy with it, great. I have no problems with that. If that's what you want to do and that's what you want to spend your money on. But my goodness, I don't understand it. I don't, but that's me. So I did want to mention that as well. So my throat's a little dry. So, oh, man, that's good. All right, let's jump into this week's topic. 30 minutes in, because I love talking about the games that I'm playing, but 30 minutes in, about the best games I should have played this year. And again, this is going to be the first of the next or total of 3 episodes, kind of by end of the year series wrap up, where we're going to cover kind of a look at 2022 and then a look ahead at 2023. So what I've done here is I put together a list of 10 games that are what I think the best games that I should have played. And how I define this, at least for myself, is these are games that interest me or that were recognized within the industry for some reason that I just never got around to. And so there's some level of interest and intrigue about these games that I kind of want to try them out. Now, I also have a few honorable mentions I want to mention as well. So let's jump into it. Starting at number 1, and this one's kind of a stretch, if you will, and that's Elden Ring. And I put this on here. Now I've started Elden Ring, but I haven't beat it. And that's why it's on here, because I really should have beaten this game. One, because I'm a big Souls guy. I love the Dark Souls games, all the Soulsborne games. I've played through them. I love them. And I was super hyped on Elden Ring. And I'll talk about this more probably in the next episode, but it just didn't capture me in the way it did. But given that it obviously won Game of the Year, 2022 VGA Game of the Year, and I think it's Game of the Year for a lot of people, the way this game took the world by storm is just such a crazy, cool phenomenon. And it really is. I understand the appeal of this game. I really do. And, I need to get back to it. I want to beat it. It's clearly one of the best games to have come out this year. It clearly did something right. It resonated with so many folks. And I just need to see it through. Part of it's because I want that satisfaction. And the other part of me is like, dude, so many other people have played and beaten this game. Like you gotta do it. So that's why I put it on the list, just because I haven't beaten it. And I know I really should, given all the accolades this game has received this year. I think it just makes sense, and I think one of the things that will help me when I come back to it is, as I do got my strategy guide, I like to use some of the guides for some of the Soulsborne games because I think it's fun. Sometimes it's nice to make sure you don't miss anything. And it's beautiful. It's such a beautiful book. And volume 2 is supposed to come out. I don't know when specifically, but it is supposed to come out. So um, I will get back to this game, but I felt like I had to put this on the list just because I didn't beat it. Next on the list, in outside of probably these first two, they're not really in any particular order. But number 2 is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Now, I've talked about this before, but the Xenoblade series for me is such a fascinating and cool looking series. I'm just so intrigued by Xenoblade Chronicles that to me it's like this club, this VIP club that if you've played the games, you love the games, you're in this club, you're in this like really unique club of people, and it just looks so cool and I want to be in this club. I don't know, there's something that looks so amazing about these Xenoblade games. And it doesn't help that I hear so many great things about these games. Like the first Xenoblade Chronicles, I think so many people have said that that's like one of the best JRPGs of all time. And that's really saying something. And that's the one I have started, that first game. I think I started on the Switch. And I don't know, it didn't grab me right away, but I also didn't really give it much of a fair shot. But I think the other thing that really kind of intimidates me about these games is just how long they are. Especially like the second one, I think is at minimum 100-hour game, like 100-hour playthrough. It's like Persona. It's ridiculous. And it's like one of those things where for me and where I'm at with my life, like I know if I jump into this game, I'm going to be playing this game realistically for the next 3 months. And that's it. If I want to get through it, I'm just going to have to dedicate the next 3 months to this game. And that's so hard for me because there are so many awesome games coming out, almost every single month that I want to try out or jump into. So that's a factor at play here. But Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is supposed to be really, really good. I think a lot of people actually, if I'm not mistaken, preferred it over the second one to a certain degree. though I think the first game is still held in the highest regard. And the fact that it got, nominated for Game of the Year this year, I think says something about that game and its fan base, its passionate fan base. So I want to pick it up. I haven't picked it up yet. I do have all the others though. I got Xenoblade 1 on Switch, I got Xenoblade 2 on Switch, and then the Xenoblade 2 DLC, the standalone DLC on Switch as well. So I've got them ready to go. Just need to find the time to jump into them. But Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is just, it's one of those great Nintendo Switch games that at some point I've got to get to, that I would like to get to. So that's why I put this one on the list. After that one, we've got Stray. And this is another one nominated for Game of the Year, and it also won like Best Debut Indie, Best Indie Game at the VGAs. And I put this on here just because of all the recognition it got and how people have just flaunted to this game and really talk about it in such high praise. And I don't get it. I'm going to be honest. I don't understand what's so appealing about this game, because leading up to its release and even after, people just are talking about it and saying how excited or good it was or good it looked. And I'm like, I don't see it. This game doesn't look all that exciting to me. And it's not that I'm not into these types of games. I certainly am and can appreciate them. But I don't know. There's just something that didn't really, like, you play as a cat and you walk around this world. Okay. I don't know. I really don't know. And as I mentioned before, I do think one of the things that really helped this game rise to the level of prominence that it has risen to is because a lot of gamers and in kind of gamer culture, they love cats. Cats, they're like obsessed with cats. And I think this game feeds off that to a certain degree. It feeds right into that. So I don't know. And again, not to say I'm not a cat person. I don't dislike or hate cats. I just don't understand the obsession with it. I'm a dog. I'm a dog guy. I personally have a dog. So, but I grew up with cats. So again, I don't have an issue. I just don't understand the obsession. But with this game, it seems like a lot of people like it. It seems like there's a lot of good things there. And so I feel like it's a game I got to try to find out for myself. Like, what is it about this game that everyone loves and kind of have clung to? That's why it's on this list. And I do plan on probably picking it up soon. The nice thing is it's a shorter game. I think the average playthrough is around like 6 hours or so. So with that, it's like, okay, I could probably realistically squeeze this game in fairly easily. After that is Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope. And this is a game, gosh, it came out, I think, late October. There's quite a few other games as well. And I feel like it kind of slid under the radar. And the interesting thing with this one is I haven't really seen that many people talk about it as opposed to the first game. The first game is awesome. I still think to this day that the first Mario and Rabbids game is one of the best games on the Nintendo Switch. And I think that's saying something because there are so many damn good games in the Switch. And so with Sparks of Hope, of course I was stoked to play it. But because there were so many other games coming out, and especially, God of War Ragnarok, a couple weeks later for that, I was like, I got to wait for this game because I won't have time to really dedicate to it with some of these other games that I would prioritize over it. Now, from what I've heard, the game is pretty good. And so that's encouraging. And I think it's a solid game from everything that I've heard or seen. And so I'm optimistic that I will like this and enjoy it a lot. It's just a matter of finding time for it. And again, I just think it's so interesting that the first game, a lot of people were like blown away by how good this game was. And then this game comes out to theoretically the same caliber of quality, if not better. And it's just kind of gone under the radar. And it could be because there were so many other great games that came out around the same time. Or in addition to, I think with the first game, no one really had expectations for that game. Whereas now we do. And so if those expectations are met, then there's really nothing to talk about. So I don't know, just kind of interesting when you didn't really hear a lot of buzz about this game in particular, but I definitely want to play it. It's actually been going on sale and dropped in price. Like I think you can get the game for like $30 now. Um, so I will definitely be taking advantage of that price drop, which is kind of nice. Helps the wallet a little bit. But it's a game I definitely want to get to. It's a game I definitely think I will enjoy, and that's why it's on this list. I just had to put it on the list. Next up on my list, we're at number 5 now, is Evil West. And this game came out, I want to say like 2 weeks at the end of November, 2 weeks after God of War. Again, I saw quite a few people streaming it like right when it released, and seems like kind of mixed reviews, if I remember correctly. And I think a lot of people said that it's kind of got, you know, very old school design, very 360 style design in terms of its linearity, almost kind of graphics and all that. And it almost has like a single A or double A quality to it. But I like that. That appeals to me. And I think the premise of this game is awesome. Like you're in an old west, but kind of with these futuristic weapons and you're fighting like monsters and vampires. That sounds dope as hell. So this game looks awesome. And it's one of those games that I put so much time into God of War Ragnarok. That game encapsulated me, as I've mentioned multiple times here in the past, that there's no way I'm going to get to this game anytime soon. So it's a game I want to play. It's a game I plan to pick up, but the timing was just really poor because there's just as awesome as it looks. I can't get to it right now. And so I definitely want to jump into it. And again, I like the fact that it kind of is modeled or designed similar to those, 360 era games. Because I don't think we get too many of that stuff these days. Everything's so bloated or open world or live service oriented. And I kind of miss the days where you just have this good single player, fairly linear campaign with some collectibles, some great combat. That sounds like an awesome time to me. That's exactly what I look for in a game. So Evil West is definitely going to be a must play in the near future. And that's why it's on this list. Moving on now to number 6, I put Gran Turismo 7. And this is another franchise that really appeals to me that I just don't know. I really don't know why, because I'm not big into racing games. I've never really been big into racing games outside of actually during the early 360 days. I was really into Project Gotham Racing. Project Got PGR3 and PGR4. I spent a lot of time on. I don't know what it was about those games. I just really enjoyed playing them. But outside of that, I've never been into racing games. I've never really gotten into the Forza games. I've tried Forza Horizon 5 just because that game, kind of had a lot of buzz around it. And it was fun. It's interesting. But I don't know. I've never been into these. And so I look at Gran Turismo 7 and it just looks cool. Again, it's kind of like that club that you just want to be in. And I just want to try it out. And I think one of the things that really sold me on this is, if I remember correctly, early in the year, I want to say around March, or right before the game came out, PlayStation did a state of play for this to kind of walk through some of the various modes and kind of what you can expect in this game. And there was quite a bit of content there that, watching it, I was like, this looks really, really cool, especially if you're a car lover. Again, not me, but it looks really, really cool. And I can appreciate that level of effort and detail that went into the game. And so with Gran Turismo 7, it's like, I just want to try it out. And I know when this game originally came out that it kind of had a little bit of a rough launch in terms of reception. I think there were quite a few directional choices that were made that really didn't go over well with the audience. But it seems like they've turned that ship around. I think they've created a high quality game from that perspective. It obviously won best racing game this year. Not that that's saying, but I don't think there's much competition in that. But it's I don't know. I just see it as a very high quality game, a game that I'd like to try out. And actually, it was on sale this past Black Friday. I think it was like $40 for the PS5 version. And I was like, So I was kind of thinking about it, but I ended up not getting it. I was like, I'll wait just because I know I'm not going to get to it right now. And it's kind of funny because before GT7 came out, I had, and I would say not too long before that, I picked up a Gran Turismo Sport on the PS4 because it was like $10, and I was like, I want to try these games to see if I would like them. Now I know they're very sim based and there's a lot of realism there, so I don't know that that would necessarily appeal to me, but there's something there to where I just want to jump in and see if I like it. Maybe there's something there for me. If not, I tried, but that's why I felt like I had to put this game on this list. Moving on from that is Pokemon Legends Arceus or Arceus. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And this came out, beginning of the year, end of January, and kind of just was forgotten, especially with the hype now, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet that just came out a couple weeks ago. But I remember, I think a lot of people appreciated the different direction that this game went in terms of how you capture Pokemon. And from what I understand, this game really is centered around just kind of collecting the Pokedex. And that sounds really cool. And so I think one of the things is over the years, because I've kind of gone in and out of Pokemon over the years, play a game here, miss 5 years, come back or, whatever. But this really intrigues me and interests me just because it is a little different. And it's finally, I think a worthwhile change to the formula that let's be honest is quite stale in today. It really hasn't evolved much over time. And so I've heard pretty good things about this game. I definitely want to try it out. And, just being like an OG Pokemon fan, I've always kind of got a soft spot for Pokemon because man, like as a kid, Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, like that was my jam. And then the card game came out, I was all about it, ate it up. And like one of my favorite memories was playing, I think I had Pokemon Blue on my Game Boy. And then I had the strategy guide with it and just going through that first game, trying to collect all the Pokemon while watching the Pokemon show, playing Pokemon cards. Like, oh man, that's nostalgia, right? It's just good nostalgia, good memories. So this game looks super cool, and it's one that I would like to try out at some point. After that, we have Tactics Ogre Reborn. And this one came out fairly recently. I want to say, a couple weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a kind of a remake from, I think, the PSP version, which is a remake or remaster from the PS1 version of this game, which I never played either one of those. And it's the game that kind of spawned off like Final Fantasy Tactics and was really a big inspiration in a lot of tactics games, to be honest. At least that's the way I understand it. And so with this game, it just looks really cool. And I've heard nothing but good things about it. And, over the last couple of years, I've really found out that I do enjoy these kind of tactical strategy games. I didn't ever thought of myself as someone that would enjoy it, but really after Valkyria Chronicles kind of captured me, I was like, okay, I kind of dig these games. And so I would like to give this game a go just because I know it's a really, really good game. There's something really awesome here. And having an appreciation for that style of tactical and strategy games, it's something where I just kind of feel like this is like one of the best of the best. So I feel like I kind of got to try it being a fairly noob fan in that genre. Keeping along the lines of kind of strategy, JRPG type games is number 9, the Diofield Chronicle. And I put this on here now because I know the game kind of got soft reception, soft reviews, and some people liked it, some people didn't. I think it's sitting around like a 6 or 7 on the Metacritic. Nothing really good at all. But from what I played on the demo, and I talked about this before, I liked what I played, and I was really intrigued to see where this story would go. And so I put this game on this list because while I didn't get it right away, and I actually recently picked it up, which we'll do a recent pickup segments probably next couple episodes. But I did pick it up, because I do want to play it. And at the time it came out, there's just, again, I knew God of War was on the horizon, and I was, playing Cyberpunk and in another game or two, but just wasn't going to have time to jump into it right away. But it looks cool. And I liked this I'm not big on RTS games, but I liked the kind of RTS strategy combat of it within the game. And then you kind of mix that with kind of the base building, not really base building, but the kind of social aspect, kind of hub world, in between missions. So I think there's something that I'll like within this game. I could be totally wrong, maybe after I play it for like 10 hours, but I think I played the demo like 4 hours and, I don't know. I dug it. So maybe I'm one of the few, but I felt compelled to put this game on this list because I liked what I played from the demo and I like what Square Enix is trying to do. New game, kind of more of a budget RPG, but something fun there. So I want to get to it. And this is one I actually have. So that's great. And finally, at number 10, probably an obvious choice, but I had to put it on here, is A Plague Tale Requiem. And I put this on here because early this year, I did play A Plague Tale Innocence. I liked it for the most part. I had a couple combat gripes with it, but I think it's a pretty solid game and very, very beautiful, even for what that game was doing. And obviously, the second one is more of that. It's gotten great reviews. I think for a lot of people, it's even their game of the year. So I think it is a step up from the first game, which is really exciting. And, it's on Game Pass, which, that's great. Though I prefer to play it on PlayStation since I played the first one on PlayStation. But it also got nomination for Game of the Year. Didn't win, but it got the nomination, which I think says something. So there's obviously something really high quality here for this game that just kind of tells me that, yeah, you need to play this game probably sooner than later. It's one of those that like, I'm not in a rush to play it. Obviously I just played the first one this year and that one came out, 3 years ago, but it's definitely in my backlog to where I know it's an important game to play because, it's of high quality. And I think it's got a good story and, after playing the first one and kind of the way that game ended, I am kind of curious where the story will go. So I'm excited to eventually jump into it, see what's there, see if it lives up to the critical praise that I think a lot of folks have given this game, see if it's worthy of that Game of the Year nomination, and if it's something I would enjoy. And I'm also curious if they made the combat a little better, because that was my biggest complaint with the first game, is it just felt very stiff and I don't know, it just didn't work that well. So I'll see if that's improved. But again, I just had to put this game on the list because of all the notoriety it received this year. Now, I do have a couple honorable mentions. So they didn't make my top 10 list, but a couple honor mentions that I do want to throw out there that are games that I also would like to play, but not as much as these other ones. So that first one's Neon White. This is that first person kind of speed running card based game. And I've heard nothing but great things about this. I think right now it's only on PC and Switch, but I believe it's coming to Xbox and PlayStation 4. So that's kind of cool. But it's supposed to be really, really fun. And I like first person games. So it's probably a game I could have fun with. It's not super high on my priority list, but again, a lot of people talked this game up, said it was great. So I felt compelled to at least give it an honorable mention because it did seem like a really popular game this year that I think quite a few people enjoyed. And it seems like it's pretty high quality. Next honorable mention goes to Pentiment, the Obsidian developed game that I think looks really cool. I love the art style. I love that Obsidian, now owned by Microsoft, was able to create this kind of passion project with such a beautiful, unique art style that's this like mystery crime thriller. Like I love the idea of like a crime detective game set in like, I think it's like the 16th century. And then with that art style, I just love it. I did look it up. It's like 16 or 17 hours long on average, which seems a little long in my opinion for maybe a game like this. But if the story is that compelling, then I think there's something there. I've heard the game necessarily isn't for everyone, but I've kind of been looking forward to this since I heard about it and kind of saw it. I really think since like the summer showcase. So I had to give it an honorable mention. Next is Cuphead, The Delicious Last Course. And this is one that I had completely forgotten came out this year. This is the DLC for Cuphead. And I loved the first Cuphead game, played it on my Xbox because at the time when it first came out, it was an Xbox exclusive. And it's so good. It's such a unique art style, such a pretty game, hard as fuck, but so good. Like genuinely so good. And so I know the DLC is more. It's got another new character, great new bosses. And I just wanted to give it a shout out because it's a game I completely forgot had come out. And yeah, I want to jump into it. After that, shout out to Sifu. This is one that it's more of a fighting game, and I never really understood what it kind of was until I watched a little bit of gameplay, heard a little bit, some people talk about it. But Sifu, I don't know if it's a game I'd like, but a lot of people said it was pretty cool, pretty fun. I think it's got an interesting mechanic with this kind of aging process, when you die and stuff like that. So it's one that I'd like to at least try at some point just to kind of see what's there, given the kind of praise I've heard for this game. So I felt compelled to give it an honorable mention. And then finally is Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, the big expansion for Monster Hunter Rise. This is another one where I've played Monster Hunter Rise, really never, got into Monster Hunter with Monster Hunter World like a lot of other people. But I feel like this is an exclusive club, the Monster Hunter, like the Monster Hunter Club, that people just are obsessed and love this game. And I've heard Sunbreak is a really good DLC, good, nice expansion. I actually own it because I wanted to get the amiibo that came with the collector's edition. At the time, that was the only way you could get it. But I know it's good. There's a lot of good content here. So I wanted to give this one a shout out because, again, like Xenoblade, it's one of those games where I just haven't given the proper time to, but really, really want to. And it just appeals to me for whatever reason. And so that's it. That's my list of top best games I should have played in 2022 that I didn't get around to. I'd love to hear from you. What games did you not get around to or that you'd like to play but haven't yet that came out this year? Let me know down in the comments below or hit me up on Twitter at Gamecite Podcast. Would love to hear from you guys. Hope you enjoy this episode and kind of talking about some of the best games of this year that may or may not, maybe we didn't play. I didn't, but I think it's fun. It's always fun to kind of look at those games, kind of pick out a list of games that I want to play these games, but I just never got around to it. So hope you guys enjoyed that and enjoyed the conversation around it. I want to thank you all for your love, kindness, and support out there. My voice is getting a little tired, but I do appreciate that. Remember, again, best way you can support the show is leave us a nice rating on the podcast platforms. Leave us comments on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to YouTube and or Rumble. You can check out the video episodes up there. And we're almost at 400 downloads on podcast services. So get the word out. Let's hit it by end of the year. That would be super awesome. And I would very much appreciate it. Again, thank you for all your love, kindness, and support. I will talk to you guys next week as we are gearing up towards Christmas. So Merry Christmas. I'll talk to you guys soon. So until next time, I'm Bonfire, and I will see you online.